Welcome to the Brush Techniques Lab. This is lesson module 1. Basic brush moves and techniques, sort of the commandments of brushes, so to speak. One of the things about the brushes that stands out the most is that we are now responsible for the sustain of the notes that we play. Oftentimes with sticks, with a stick it's like this is a quarter note, half note, whole note, eighth note. They all sound the same. It's a tap and wait. With a brush, it's more like playing a tonal instrument. If we played a horn or some other instrument where we had a sustain value to it, we are now responsible for the sustain. So a quarter note, now pending the tempo of course, can be da, 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 or eighth notes, da, 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 or maybe a half note, da. Whole note, da, 3, 4. Playing that sustain is really important, and one of the things about the brushes, for me the timpani and the brushes affected my timekeeping the most, because once I had an idea of what the sustain sounded like and the feel of playing that sustain, I was able to translate that to playing on the drums and cymbals and hearing that sustain sort of mentally in my brain. And because I can do that, I can shorten it and lengthen it and have energy, relaxation, create urgency, let release happen, play ahead, behind, the center, all those little things that happen in coloring the music and affecting the feel and the pulse happens because of the knowledge of sustain, and the brushes will help with that tremendously. Some basic ways of playing the brushes on the drums. First is you want to keep the brushes as lateral to the drums as possible, like very flat to the drum. Not like this kind of motion, but more like as flat as possible so that the bristles can be on the head as much as possible. A lot of times I'll even turn my left hand over and allow, like get, because this is underneath the brush here. So get that out of the way like this and get on, so I can get more bristles onto the brush when I want to play a really open sweeping sound. My signature brushes with Vic Firth, they very distinctly have a different bristle here. It's a thinner bristle and it fans wider than this. This is the sweeping hand brush. This is the riding hand brush. This one doesn't fan as wide, and it's got a little bit thicker bristles on it. So it has more rebound, and it's more for playing rhythms, this kind of thing. This one is more for the sweeping sound. You can hear the difference in the sweeps. And that's because of the bristle density, and that's why I have two different ones, and it's sort of a new way of thinking about the brushes and the very distinct tones that we need to make out of them. So brushes flat towards the drum. One of the other things is you don't want to have the brushes moving towards each other a lot, if ever, really, because the bristles can get caught in one another. So you always want them moving in opposite directions. So if this hand's going over to the right, this hand's going over to the left. So you're constantly doing this sort of motion. I call it like the windshield wiper. It's like a brush, the windshield wipers on your car. Right, so if you see, like as I'm playing, I'm always moving away from one another, doing this kind of movement. If you don't want to really do this. If you're going to anything, I like to move away from each other like this, and this is the moment here where you can get caught up. So it's not even good to do that. It's better to alternate like this when you're doing it. But so moving away from each other in alternate directions, windshield wiper style effects like that, low to the ground. Keep in mind that you're responsible for the sustain, so we want to be able to get the sustain out of the stroke. So we're not going to play a lot of taps like this. Like this is a brush owner, not a brush player. You can own brushes and not know how to play them. So this is playing like sticks. This is playing like a brush player, knowing how to get the sustain out, using the sweep and the long tones that are available to you with the brushes. Okay, let's talk about the basic positions on the snare drum here. Our sweep is going to usually go between 10 and 4 o'clock. So we're going to do it in a football style. Not round like this, but more like in a football style between 10 and 4. So this will be 1, this will be 2, this will be 3, this will be 4. So if I count it in a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can kind of hear the rhythm in there. So I'm hearing that da, 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 da. It's not just this arbitrary swirly sound. It's in time, and I'm hearing it as the quarter notes, and you can kind of hear the pulse inside of it a little bit. 10 and 4 o'clock. The riding hand, we're going to focus on getting, first off, this kind of swiping stroke here like this across the drum. So not this, more of a swiping stroke. And we're going to play, we're going to focus on this sort of quarter note V shape is the way I call it. And here's that 2 o'clock on the snare drum. It's a V shape. So it's, we're going to, if 1, 2, 3, 4. You can practice just doing that. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. You can see what's happening is when this is up here on 1, this is down here. 1, 2. This is over here on 4, and this is at 10 o'clock. So I'm kind of going between 10 and 2, and back here kind of towards 6 o'clock a little bit with this swiping sound. But it's always when this one isn't in the way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm not joking when I tell you this. I practiced doing this for months upon months. I would put a metronome on, a ding, 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 ding. Because I just needed to get the feel of the way it was to command the band, command the ensemble with just these pair of brushes on a snare drum. You gotta have, there's gotta be a pocket in it. It's got a groove. I'm not doing anything but playing quarter notes right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, da, 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 da. I'm sweeping with my sweeping hand and just playing a nice swiped, long tone quarter note with my riding hand. Da, 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 da. Brushes are lateral down to the drum. The longest notes I can get out of them. A real pretty sweeping sound. Ding, 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 ding. Nice and strong. You're going to practice it with a click when you do it. Ding, ding. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. The very basics of playing brushes. In the next lesson modules, we're going to discuss some of the specific beats and some of the different strokes, but that is a good start on what's happening, and you can practice that for months upon end, just trying to get a nice pocket and a nice feel. And of course it's different at different tempos, so you need a log in your practice log. Where am I at today with my basic brush beat, which is quarter notes on the riding hand and our sweep on the sweeping hand.